What you see in the world that I've seen, whether in the West or the East, generally you find there's many different temperaments and many different ideals that you can follow. But you see, especially in what I've experienced in the religious traditions of India, you have those, I mentioned a little bit, those who are more inclined towards the emancipation of the self from duty or dharma. You follow in Buddhism, you follow Dharma and things like that as well. But in Mayavad Buddhism, it's a bit more impersonalist or nihilist, and it's about achieving this spiritual freedom or emancipation. And you also have those paths which are very much oriented towards loving sacrifice and loving relationship. Actually, you could say the bondage of a loving relationship is higher in like bhakti, for example, than the freedom, spiritual freedom, where each thing comes with its different factors. So in a bondage of loving sacrifice, certainly there's certain freedoms you may say, oh, I've lost that freedom, lost this freedom, but you've gained so much by the connection, by the loving sambandha, the relationship, that without that your life doesn't have really any meaning. You lose meaning in life if you don't have responsibility for those you love and relationship with those you love. Then really, what is your meaning? We see that throughout not only human civilizations, but also, others. Like, everyone needs to live in connection with others and in relationship and have loving dealings with others. So in bhakti, it's very much oriented towards that. And we find that also in the West, how especially, you take the ideal of Christ and what he taught of, he gave himself the ultimate sacrifice, really, where he was willing to sacrifice himself for that cause. And it's hard to, get into this in detail in brief, but, using that as something that we can look to as inspiration. Because ultimately you see Western civilization built up on these ideal of the nobility really of sacrifice and for a just cause, and also the nobility of taking responsibility rather than the immaturity of just carelessness, wanton gratification of your different impulses, rather than being able to, even in my case, it was like you have to choose. Okay, no, I'm not gonna indulge my lower instincts. Instead, I'm going to try to sacrifice myself into the ideal of a just cause, out of a relationship of love with our guardians. And so you find that, and that's actually something that's given me a lot of, you get a lot of inspiration from these personalities who are able to walk that path. And you see it in actually I grew up, a lot of people like to hate on America, and every country and every place, human history is filled with horrible acts. And that's not something that's specific to one place or to one country or government. That's something that's consistent throughout history. But to see it only in a one-sided way is also ignorant of the true reality, seeing things from only one perspective. And if you look at the ideals that helped build up our civilization, they are noble ideals of, you look at the Protestants, for example, they're very much into this idea of, divine work, or you could say doing your dharma as a responsible human being in service to God. Not just being an escapist. Like, even myself in our ashram and in our mission, we're not into becoming a monk who gives up all kinds of work. Like, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that it's a false renunciant who thinks he can do no action. Krishna says in the 3rd chapter, he said, actually, it's very foolish to think you can do no action. He said, even breathing is an action, it's a karma. But if you're doing it only for selfish reasons, it generally becomes like sinful action, because it leads you to engagement in the impulses. And when you're doing it in a just cause, it becomes, niskama karma yoga. You do it as a sense of, you do it as a yagya. Yagya actually means sacrifice. So when we do like a sacrifice, in initiation even, we do a fire sacrifice, we offer food grains different types of grains which represent the soul actually, offering itself to the divine. And it's offering ourselves in this sacrifice of action, kriya, in devotion. Actually, bhakti, it has two sides. Not two sides, but two integral threads that weave through it, which is the action and the internal mood. And if you only do the action without the proper mood, it's not bhakti. But if you only have the mood and you're not doing anything, then also in the spiritual realm, it's not bhakti also. I mean, just having the mood, you need to have some activity. So you see that in the West also. And you basically have these, what I see mostly is you have these, you have the order, you have order and chaos. You have the yin and yang, the Tao. So you always have these choices and you need to balance them. That's why you can't have total, you can't have anything forced. You have to enable, even for myself, it was very important that my Gurudev, at one point did say, like, look, I'm not forcing you to do this. You have a choice. It's very important to have that freedom as well, because if you don't, even with, actually it's a very important thing, because with Krishna, our Gurudev would say that independence is the most precious gift of God. And so it's not to belittle that. Actually, that's what makes the sacrifice of it so great, because it's the greatest gift. And our Gurudev would say that all the time, that your independence, which he said was your free will, your free volition, we're not even a deterministic philosophy. Your free will is your greatest gift. And therefore, to offer that in service and dedication is the highest kind of gift, of offering.